Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us yet again for another session of Boyer's Client Events. This session is all about the cloud. Why is the cloud right for you? And some questions to consider as you're making that decision. Go ahead and move forward, Eric. Thank you so much. If you aren't already aware, this is kind of a breakdown of what all we've got going on for our client event this week. So today's sessions are mostly centered around your ERP solutions. Tomorrow, most of them are going to be around Microsoft Dynamics CRM solutions. And then on Thursday, we've got a bunch of solutions surrounding the Power Platform. If you've already been on a few of the sessions, you know this. If not, just wanted to make you aware that you can go back to that same event page where you registered, use that same link to get in, and you'll notice throughout the day that more sessions become a watch now option as the sessions continue to go through, and you can watch them now if you've missed them or want to see them again, or you can join the current live session. And again, most of you are our clients, so we're not going to spend much time on this. Just kind of wanted to give you the really quick picture that, hey, Boyer has a lot to offer you now. You know, we started in '94 with Dynamics SL. Now we have a whole slew of ERP and CRM and Power Platform solutions. I can talk. And then, of course, we also do the cloud for nonprofit. Did want to touch base really quickly on that managed support down in the corner there on this next slide here. So Boyer has revamped the way that we do our support. The more that we've talked to our clients, the more we've realized, you know, not everyone has the same needs, right? Some of our clients want just kind of a very basic break fix support. Others want a much more proactive approach where they're working with us on making sure that all their technology is working seamlessly together. And still others want to kind of do a lot of the work on their own, but they want Boyer sort of on call, so to speak. So we do have plans that will help you in whatever tier you feel fits you best. And we do have a session coming up in an hour? Yes, in 1 hour talking about that specifically. Let's see, that's about all I've got. The one other tidbit I wanted to be sure to mention, if you do have questions on this session, go ahead and put those in the Q&A section on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will get to them. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Eric.
All right, thank you, Katie. So again, what we're going to kind of talk about here, the first 10 minutes or so is, you know, what does it look like to move to the cloud? Is now the right time to go to the cloud? You know, the assumption I'm making is that all of you are on some kind of an on-premise system today, either SL, GP, or NAV. So planning out what does that path to the cloud possibly look like? Some reasons why we're seeing people move to the cloud. And then I just wanted to end with a quick kind of overview of Business Central and even highlighting on, again, some of those reasons that we see people shifting. So in case some of you haven't seen Business Central and you're curious, you know, what is it? What does it look like? We'll kind of walk through some of that. So with that, we'll kind of get started. So again, key questions is, what does it mean to move to the cloud? So if we are looking at moving to Business Central, it is truly sitting on a SaaS environment in Microsoft's Azure structure. And so one thing I want to show you is how Business Central is all tied in with your Microsoft 365 account. So you are fully managing your system in Azure Active Directory, is actually where you license users and then bring those users into Business Central. So there are some changes that happen with that. So again, if you are an on-premise SQL user, you no longer get direct access to that database. There are still plenty of ways to get that data out. We'll show you some ways to get a lot of your data out into Excel. But if you're used to, you know, creating custom stored procedures or having custom views that you're running reports off of, there are still ways to do that, but it's different than how it is on premise. There is ways to actually replicate your Business Central data on Azure Data Lake services so that you then do have more of that traditional on-hands touching of your data. And one big key thing with Microsoft Cloud is it is your data. You are not renting space. You do have ways to get full backups of that database if you do want it. So it is still your data, even though we're now having Microsoft hosted. Another important question people like to ask is why now? Why are we looking to move to the cloud? Now, again, if you're on SL, you probably are well aware that mainstream support is ending fairly shortly in the next couple of years here. So that might be speeding up your decision. It could be that your hardware is on its last leg and you need to upgrade your hardware. So instead of that investment, maybe you want to look to moving to the cloud. That's actually going to be one reason we're going to talk about is why we see people moving to the cloud. But it's good to ask, why are we doing this? Because part of that is getting that message across to your employees is your company ready for a change? So it is different operating on a cloud ERP from on-premise. There's a lot of things people like, and because it's changed, there are things that some people may not like early on. So there is some adoption that needs to happen. So having a change policy in place, change management in place, and communicating that out to the organization is very important as to this is why we're doing it, this is how we're doing it, and this is how we're going to get there. The fourth bullet point there are key processes. So there could be some things, again, since we are moving into cloud, there could be some things that need to change. Part of what we do when we help move you into the cloud, and it kind of goes into the fifth bullet point there too, is helping you create a plan, helping you map out those processes, and identifying where some things are going to change. And some of the changes could be that you have inefficiencies. There could just be inherent things that Dynamics GP does that's just inefficient that we can improve upon with Business Central. There could be other things that SL does really well that we might have to do things a little bit different in Business Central to kind of replicate that process. But again, as your partner, that's what we're going to help you identify and figure out what that process looks like. And then the plan and timeline as well is very important. Understanding, are we needing to get this done in 3 months? Is this server really truly on its last leg here? Or do we have a longer timeline, 8, 9 months? Again, complexity of your environment will dictate that, as well as just some other outside factors in there. Some key reasons to move, as you're going to see, is ease of access. So again, if you're on premise and you are working remote, you may have to VPN in order to remote connect to GPSL or nav. There might just be obstacles in your way to get connected. You might be wanting to download a file and it's actually downloading onto a terminal server somewhere. Then you need to move from the terminal server to your local computer to look at the data. So when you get into Business Central, as I'm going to show you, it is easier to get access to it. It's also more of modern user experience. And again, it is part of the Microsoft 365. This used to be Office 365. It's now Microsoft 365. So you're going to actually see how a lot of the Microsoft products are now talking and communicating with each other. The increased security with Microsoft compliance. This is a big one. So the link here is all the SOX and regulatory compliance that Microsoft is going through to protect access and protect the data. We actually recently had a client with on-premise SQL servers got hit by ransomware, and they didn't want to pay the ransom, so they were down for a while and lost some data because of some backups. With this increased security, that is very highly unlikely to happen, that Microsoft would somehow get hit with a ransomware across their systems. So there's just a lot more security with that cloud data. The one thing I want to put in here is a quote from the CEO, Satya Nadella, again saying that this is your data and we are protecting that data. So Microsoft is making very heavy investments in the security of this cloud computing, this cloud environment that they have, and they're continuing to make those investments. Few other things is, again, no hardware costs and lower maintenance costs. So your IT people can actually focus on other things. They don't have to worry about a server. They don't have to worry about people connecting to a terminal server. They don't have to worry about a web server if you're running any kind of web applications. None of those servers, there's nothing to install on clients. Everything is handled through the Business Central license. Same with automatic updates. So again, part of the Microsoft 365, just like your Excel or Outlook or Teams, you get updates. Microsoft does release 2 updates every year, and those are automatically applied, so you no longer have costs associated with upgrades. No database backups to manage either. I'll actually show you where you can go and restore if you need to. We had a few clients that have done that. Some it was just a proof of concept, or they just had restore back to a day to test it out. Another client actually accidentally posted about 1,000 invoices they weren't ready to, so they restored back 15 minutes, got that data back, and they were up and running. Another big thing too with Business Central is user feedback. So right in Business Central itself is where this link is. So what Microsoft's actually trying to do, and way back when I was actually in the room when this discussion happened about 20 some years ago, when Microsoft acquired Great Plains, is they wanted to make a best of breed, and they were hoping to do that in about 10 years, and here we are 22 years later, and they're finally getting there. But they understand GP and SL do a lot of things well, and they want to take a lot of what GP and SL do well and move that into Business Central, and we are seeing cases of that where a lot of that functionality is coming into the software. So if there are things you love with that program, you can put that feedback in on this link here, and other users in the community can vote on it, and Microsoft looks to roll that out. So with that, I want to hop into the system here real quick. I'll show this screen as well. So this is a part of the access of Business Central. This is really, multiple ways to connect to it. So there is an app in either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store where you can install Business Central on your phone and be able to connect through it through a mobile device. Same with a tablet in the background. You can have that app on the tablet and connect that way. And the one on the back is maybe a little more traditional where people are connecting through a PC. So I'm just gonna go ahead and flip into my environment here. And to connect to Business Central, all I'm gonna do is launch a web browser. Now, Business Central is browser agnostic, so you can use anything you want. In this case, I'm using Edge, and the only reason I'm using Edge is, again, to really show the single sign-on. So here's my domain account I'm signed in as, is this eVigasa at this domain. And in here, I could have a shortcut to be able to connect to Business Central, but instead I'm just gonna click on this waffle icon. I'm gonna go into my apps. I wanna see all my applications, and you're gonna see Business Central sitting right there with all of my apps. So this is where I've got Excel, I've got Outlook in here. I can connect to my PowerPoint if I wanted to. And here's where I can log into Business Central. So again, you can bookmark it, connect automatically in that way if you wanted to, but this is just a different way that I'm gonna connect. And here's where Business Central actually pops up, that it identifies that it's C sandbox environment. So these are true replications of production. So again, I can have separate environments that I can connect into. I'll just go ahead and log into production. So the next thing I just want to kind of show is how Business Central works with some of the other Microsoft 365 products. So this is my landing page. I can change my role, kind of changes what I see in here, but it's giving me some kind of quick cues and fact boxes in here, so I can see ongoing transactions. I can see customer balances in here. I'm actually a sales order clerk in here. And then I've also got a link to Power BI reports. So this is one of the first touch points we have, is I can actually have Power BI reports embedded in here. And these I can interact with. So if I actually want to expand this report out, I do have the ability to navigate, make changes in here. I can look at different charts. You can see I've actually got multiple tabs in here. So maybe I want to go look at my sales pipeline. So this is actually looking at CRM data now in this case. So I'm in Business Central, but I'm actually looking at my CRM data. Part of Power BI, which I know we've got other sessions on our Power Platform, Power BI can grab data from multiple sources. So you could actually be looking at data from somewhere else in the organization while you're in Business Central. And it could take Business Central data, take CRM data, maybe take data from Excel files, consolidate that all together, and let us do some reporting off that information. So some other things I just want to show in here is if I look at, if I go look at a sales invoice, maybe I've got a posted sales invoice that a user was looking at. So this is a view of my data. And again, if you're on Nav, this is going to look very familiar. If you're GP or SL, this is going to be similar to a smart list or a quick query. So I can actually put filters in here. So I can have multiple filters on here. I can actually create favorites. So I can go look at all my unpaid invoices. I can search in here. Maybe I'm trying to find a specific document. I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's got 103 in there. It'll actually find all of those invoices for me. I can change the sorting in here. And this is where we get some of the connections to Microsoft 365. I can dump this data out to Excel. So as I mentioned, you don't have direct database access, but any of these list views, regardless if I'm looking at vendors, customers, GL transactions, in this case invoices, I can send this data out to an Excel file just that quickly. So there's my data. Now I can do some additional things with this if I wanted to. You'll also see the ability to edit data in Excel. Now these are posted documents. So when I do this edit in Excel, there's going to be very few things I can change. Due date is probably one of the biggest ones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click enable editing. What it's going to check is it's going to make sure, does Eric Bigasa have access to modify this data? So it's still going through a security layer. But again, everything's a single sign-on. It's flowing through and it's making sure, am I able to connect to my data? Once I'm connected now, I could start editing information in here, but you can see a lot of these fields are going to be red. So again, really the only thing I'm sure I can change in here is probably due date and maybe a couple other things. So I can't even do due date down here. So with posted transactions, like in the case of AP, I could change a 1099 code or 1099 amount, but just like your current systems, there's a lot of things locked down in here, but this could be a way for me to quickly change vendor records. You know, maybe I got to do a mass address update from another file, do a VLOOKUP, pull that in, click this publish button, and it's going to push those changes in. Another thing I can do is if I'm looking at this document here, so I want to go look at a specific invoice, I'll just grab one here. This is what the data transaction screen looks like for an invoice. You can see I can put attachments in here. I can put notes in here. I can actually see some additional details on here. I can go ahead and hide that though if I wanted to and see the actual invoice. But if I come up here, I'm just going to copy this link. I also could share it through directly with Teams though. I like to do the copy link because what that actually lets me see then is a preview of the document I'm sharing. What this is letting me do now is send this exact invoice over to, in this case, Jeff Bush, to make sure we are talking about the exact same transaction. So when I go ahead and send that through to Teams now, Jeff will get this view. He can see some summary information on it. He can click on details, and now it's going to redirect me into Business Central through Teams. And again, it's still asking for a login, so it's still going through a security check. So it's making sure, does Jeff have access to look at the invoices? Maybe he doesn't, so we want to make sure we block that down. But now Jeff is looking at this invoice, and Jeff has full control of this invoice as well. So if I need to do any corrections, if I wanted to resend this invoice out, I've got that capability. So I am really using Business Central as Teams as my user interface in this case. One other thing to show here real quick as well is Outlook connection. So I can actually get an email here from Eric Bigasa checking on an invoice. And you can see this invoice is highlighted in blue. This is Outlook detecting that this is a transaction in Business Central. So when I click on that invoice, it's actually going to redirect me right to that payables invoice. And just like the other screen, I have pretty much full control of this document. So now I'm basically in Business Central through my Outlook. And I'm able to look at comments on here. So now I can reply back to Eric and say, well, we still have an open support issue here. That's why we haven't paid this invoice. I can also click on this contact insights. This works on both the customer and vendor side of things if you've got their contact set up. And it's going to take me now into that master record for Boyer. So I could go look at their open balance. I'd be able to see any payments made. I'd be able to see any transaction that we process through the system. So again, if it's on the customer side, I could see all their open sales orders. I could see all their past due invoices, all of that right through Outlook. And finally, if I wanted to, I could actually create a new document here as well. So I can get any kind of a transaction started from Outlook. It would default in the master record information off of this email. I could finish that off, submit it in, and then maybe we've got workflow approvals and it'll process things from that point where we've got to have approvals. Finally, I want to just hop into the admin center. So I talked about how you don't have backups anymore to maintain, and you don't have to worry about updates and setting up users and so on and so forth. So if I come into my admin center here, so if your user is an administrator of Business Central, this is where I can actually look at my different environments. So I can look at my production environment. I could create a new sandbox. I can see this existing sandbox environment. I can secure these environments. Maybe I only want my developers to have access into there. But if I come into here, here's where I am able to create that database export. So again, this is your data. I can get a complete snapshot of that data. I can initiate support requests in here. Here's where if I do this copy, I'm able to create a new sandbox environment off of this point in time snapshot of my production environment. I can do a restore. So again, Microsoft is doing 15-minute incremental backups. They're doing full nightly backups. I am able to choose a point in time to restore to. And maybe what I actually want to do is refresh my dev environment so I can go ahead and process that through. So you do have control as to when, if you need to do any kind of restores in your environment. And finally, I've got telemetry here as well. So I'm going to just go back. Oh, let's go back 100 minutes. This is actually now giving me error capturing. So this is something you probably wouldn't look at very often, but we would be able to help you with some of this. But this is ways if we have any error messages that happen, or if we have slow performance on something, we're able to actually capture that result here. So Microsoft is constantly evaluating your system here, and then we can work with Microsoft to understand the issue or the performance problem or what have you. So this really kind of helps us monitor the system. And finally, when you're in the cloud, you do get a database limit off of that default license. So you can actually see I start with 80 gigs. I actually get another 3 gigs per user. So I have a core base of 110 gigs, and this is actually letting me monitor that. Now, once I start getting up close to that 110, I can definitely license more space. It's not an issue, but I am able to monitor it, and I can also go look and see what tables are starting to take up a lot of that space. The biggest culprit is attachments. So in Business Central, I do have the ability to really attach documents anywhere in the system. So if I go look at my customer list here, look at my attachments, I can attach documents. That can become a big culprit. One way we actually can easily get around that is we can have these attachments get saved into SharePoint instead of Business Central directly. The SharePoint storage is just a lot more affordable, and you get a terabyte versus 100 gigs. But again, all these different kinds of tools available to us to kind of help manage our system. One last thing I just want to do is I'm just going to change the setting over to actually be a business manager and just show you how this view changes. Now, this role really just changes my home page. It's not changing my security by any means. So I can actually see my bank accounts here now. Well, if I don't have access to that, I'm still not going to be able to get to it. But this just shows you now a view change of I can actually see my sales. I can see my past due invoices. So we're within a positive threshold. That's why it's showing green here. I can click on that and actually see, what do we need to go into collections on? All of my different past due invoices. The red is an indicator. It's past due. If I come down here, I do have approvals as well. So again, we got full workflow capabilities. Maybe I want to have new vendors go through workflow. I want orders to go through workflow. I want journal entries to actually go through workflow. I can have those approvals in here. And then I've got some different insights in here as well. So I can actually pop up an aging report in here if I wanted to. I can drill down on this 6 weeks past due, see all the invoices making up that amount. So again, a lot of drill down capabilities. If I want this data in Excel, I could certainly do that. If I click on find entries, it'll actually take me back and show me all the posting that have occurred. So I can actually drill all the way back from an aging chart into the actual GL impact of that invoice. Again, here as well, same options. And finally, just show again a trial balance report. So I got drill down capabilities here as well. I'm looking at last month of this month. I can drill down on those account number. I can see the accounts making up that amount, drill down on the net change, and now I'm seeing all the journal entries that are making up that amount. So again, a lot of drill down capabilities. So with that, I want to leave a few minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. Otherwise, hopefully what this is getting is to kind of think about, okay, what's the process look like? Again, this is something we will definitely help you get through it, help you answer any questions you may have, help you come up with a project timeline, project cost, what it looks like to move your current systems up into the cloud if you're ready to get into cloud ERP computing.
We do have one question for you, Eric.
Sure.
Did you need to add the link for the invoice number in the email, or did Outlook somehow turn the text into a link automatically?
It's a great question. So Outlook is doing this automatically. So I sent this actually through my Boyer account. My Boyer user does not have access to this environment, so I would have no way to pre-embed that link. That is the document plugin, document number plugin from Business Central into Outlook. It is dependent on your vendor or your customer getting that number right. If they don't, what actually happens is it pops up a search box that says, I can't find this document, lets you put in some kind of a criteria to try to search on, and it'll pull up a list then of the corresponding documents that meet that search requirements, all from within Outlook.
Wonderful.
Kind of along the line of that search here too is, let's close that. I do have the ability even in here to find entries. So, again, somebody is calling me about a document number. I don't really know a lot of information on it, but I know it's got a 12 in it. I can just do this search and it's finding every single transaction in the system that has that 12 in it. So I can go look at these invoices, and now I found every invoice that's got the number 12 in it somewhere in the document number. So a lot of search options to find data in your system.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions. Going once, going twice.
Great. Well, thank you for attending. Hope this was beneficial, provide some information. And again, please reach out to us if you have any other questions or want to start talking about what the process may look like to move to the cloud.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And if you're interested in knowing what's new in Business Central, that is our next session. So we'll see you there in just a couple minutes. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.